Field landman doesn't have the exposure to what happens, at the company level.
Nobody really knows what a division order analyst is, or even that we exist.
What happens after the lease is bought or the deal is done.
Division order analyst will go over title and set up wells and decks in the system for all of the ownership.
It's not just getting people paid, it's making sure you've got everything papered up and documented properly.
Handling owners is a huge part of what we do.
To get a person put in pay, I don't think people really appreciate everything that happens.
Blood, sweat, and tears that went in to get you that.
Land insights, market trends, industry experts. Welcome to the Land Department Podcast, the state of land and energy as we see it.
Brent, it's been a while since we've done like a technical land episode.
I know this stinking AI is taking over all our conversations. I'm sick of talking about it.
It'll work its way in.
Yeah, I'm sure. Gosh, you can't avoid it. But no, yeah, we're kind of back in the technical side of things, and I'm excited about it. We've had the idea of, and we've talked about all the new energy stuff, and all the nuance of landman world. But back office is just as important, and so we wanted to dive into the different aspects of the back office. What happens after the lease is bought or the deal is done. And I reached out to Rebekah. She's the Houston Association of Division Order Analyst President. And I said, hey, Rebekah, hi, I'm Brent. We do this little podcast, and we'd love to have you on to really just talk about division orders and talk about what they are and where it fits in the process. And we talk about a lot, our audience is field landmen and company people as well. And really a field landman doesn't have the exposure to what happens, at the company level. So this is going to be great just to, the Division Order 101, and then we'll be able to jump into some other things that, on the company side that are a little more nuanced that would maybe help land teams and division order teams work better. And so, Rebekah, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was so excited whenever you asked me. This is my first one, so.
I think you're an old pro after this. Well, the good news is you're just talking to a landman, so we can goof this thing up and probably squirrel off on something else. But Rebekah, give us a little bit of your background. Where you work, what your role is, how you got into the business, that kind of stuff.
Sure. So right now, as you mentioned, I am president of Houston Association of Division Order Analysts. I also serve on the board for NADOA, which is the National Association of Division Order Analysts. Can be a mouthful.
Yeah.
I am also the Division Order Supervisor for Switchgrass Energy. We operate some wells out of Oklahoma. I've been in the industry for, about 12 years now.
Yeah.
I got into this by accident working as a part-time land admin, and I've just kind of worked my way up, and I've done everything from the operator side to outsourcing side, and it's been a ride.
Yeah.
So
yeah. We talked earlier about, how people get into the business, and there's not really a clear path, on the land side, you can get a degree in energy management or whatever. How does one get into a division order kind of profession?
So it's kind of, I want to say, about who nobody really knows what a division order analyst is, or even that we exist for the most part. So I got into this completely by accident. I was actually in school to be a teacher, elementary school teacher. I was going for first grade. I was in my junior year, had done my student teaching, everything. I was almost out the door. And I took a part-time contract job working for an operator here in downtown Houston. They had me on the floor with the construction men, building out the offices. I was in there with the files by myself. Yeah. And I started, reading these files, and I got kind of nosy and kind of interested. And I was like, hey, this is, I think I like this. And so I started asking more questions, took on more responsibility. And I told my boss, am I crazy? I think I want to do this. I don't think I want to go teach kids anymore.
I don't like first graders that much after all.
Yeah, maybe I don't. No, but she told me, well, hey, let me give you a little more responsibility. Let's see if you really actually like this. And so she did, and took on more responsibility. And I was like, no, I love this. I'm going to take a year off of school. I'm going to really commit to this and focus. And then, I was almost at the finish line. So do I change my major? What do I do here? I ended up loving it. And I went ahead and went to my advisor, and I was like, you guys are going to think I'm crazy. but I want to switch my major. And they said, well, we have geology programs, we have engineering programs. And I'm like, that's not what I want to do. Told her what I do. She didn't really have any idea about it. And so she said, hey, one of our sister campuses has this program for environmental management. It's pretty close. You'll learn about, legal stuff. You'll learn about spills and all of that. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. And I ended up getting my undergrad and master's in that as well, and continued on with the company. And as roles opened up, I got to slide in and take on more of a role and get more active in the division order community. And that's when I joined Hadoa, and I've worked my way up since then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We deal with a lot of people, and especially on, the back office side, and in the field, people come from all walks of life into this profession. And it's really not about, it's not that it's some high level skill. It's just not chemical engineering. It's not, a law degree. It's more about a discipline, right? And do you have focus? Do you have attention to detail? Are you do you have that acumen to really dive into details? Or you go with people, which we'll talk about a lot in division orders. Like you have a lot of that interface. So it's interesting to see different little attributes, how they can lead to a successful career in this side of the business. So that's cool.
That's one of my favorite questions actually to ask whenever I interview people to work under me is, how did you get into this business? Because it's so interesting to see how everybody got in. It's almost like nobody took this, plan on this career path. So I always think that's interesting.
Yeah, it happens. Well, so tell me about a division order department, right? What typically falls within a division order department at an E&P company?
Sure. So that can look different based on, what company you work at. Some have huge division order departments where you're siloed in and you're doing one task, and other ones only have one or two people on their team. And so you're having to do everything from cradle to grave. But for the most part, generally speaking, division order analyst will go over title and set up wells and decks in the system for all of the ownership. And then you've got to go through and review, should this person be in suspense for XYZ, and then send out division orders to the owners and get those back. And then you've got to pay attention to the state laws. Some states require division orders and some don't. And then it's the ongoing maintenance of owner inquiries, speaking with owners every day and getting those changes in.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break that down a little more. So you got title review, which is analysis of, let's say, a title opinion that's coming in either before or I guess after a well is drilled and the production is established, right? Is that when that kind of kicks off the process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that typically will come from your title attorney or even your landman. Again, just depends on the workflow, how your company operates. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're reviewing a title opinion, identifying critical title defects and deficiencies and things like that. And I guess there's typically a process for if there are critical, curative items that need to be done. Is that typically handled through the division order department, or is it pushed back to the land team, or is typically that stuff generally worked through by the time it gets to your desk?
I've seen it mostly where it's worked through by the time it gets to my desk, but there are certain situations, where maybe they couldn't find complete probate documents. And so they've got an owner in the title opinion, and it's up to the division order analyst to utilize their skills and their resources to go through and find those probate documents prior to getting that owner set up on the deck. So we can make sure we're paying the correct person.
So I guess you tend to have two tiers of deficiencies or title defects in opinion. One is like least critical, like my lease is not good. And that often is handled, before the well's being drilled or before it's at least put into pay. And then there's like the pay related issues, curative items, right? Where it's like, hey, we feel good about this lease or this interest, but, you need to clean it up before we pay. Is that typically how it gets?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Typically.
And so from all that, you're consolidating all this ownership information. You feel good about the title, and then you're setting up a deck, right? Either.
Yes.
Is a deck set up, generally, is it set up within the division order department? Or is it done from the land side and then pushed over? What do you tend to see?
Most often I've seen it where the division order team will go in and set that up in the system. We're going in and we're putting in the decimal interest and we're putting in the pay codes and all of that. And then from there, your system can generally extract down or create a report, whichever, a division of interest. So that'll show the complete 1.0,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
ownership.
The magic
That magic
1.0.
number. Yeah.
And so what does that
Yeah.
mean, right? It means you've got all interest accounted for. You're not
100%.
overcrediting someone. You're not, you've identified all the ownership, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
and everything's is good to go. Are there the systems that that's entered in, or they tend to be more accounting oriented, or are they more land oriented, or are they contract oriented or tract oriented? What do you tend to see the most commonly?
I've seen them both ways, honestly. I've worked in both, and I tend to prefer the ones that are more land friendly, if you will, less
Tract-oriented.
accounting friendly. Yes.
Yeah. I think most land folks agree to that, but the accountants always win
Yeah.
'cause they control the
Yeah,
money.
exactly. Yeah. So and again, depending on what system you use too, it's, sometimes they're really finicky and you've got to know how to work the system. And some of them are just really user friendly, and it's not as difficult.
Yeah.
So,
You see, man, with land systems, it's there's some great, there's some that aren't so great. There's some that are super sophisticated and hard to use. And there's some that are simple, but you wish you had some more features. It's like there's never that, at least so far, it doesn't seem like there's this like great one size fits all kind of system.
no.
But I think one thing that, and I would love to hear what you think about this, is like, it's the quality of what you put in. If you can really invest that time to
Correct.
put good information in the system, you're going to get a good output, regardless of what system you're using, right?
Right. Yeah. I've been a part of some acquisitions where we got system data from the prior operator, and by the time it gets in your hands, you're like, what the heck is going on? And then you're undoing a title nightmare. And it's important to have a good system that can handle your records, but it's more important to keep track of your data and to put, good data in to get good data
Stay
out.
on top of that. So,
Yeah.
okay. So you've reviewed your title, information is going into a system. You're adding up to one. You've got your division of interest built out at that point, essentially. Then comes the actual division order part, right? It's a
Yes.
department. It gets called the department, right? But the division order is an actual thing. Tell everybody,
Yes.
what that is, what that process looks like, kind of how you progress outside of the system work into the, getting people into pay.
Sure. So a division order is just a form that is sent out to all of the owners, and it has a breakdown of the well or wells they're in and then their decimal interest. And that's sent whenever we set up the wells or from the get-go. And it's sent out to all the owners. And depending on what state you're operating in, you may be able to put all your owners in DO suspense. And in some states like North Dakota and Louisiana, you cannot put an owner into suspense for division order. So everybody goes into pay as long as they're ready to go into pay.
Yeah.
And then the owners will sign and send those back. In a perfect world, and they don't have any questions or any arguments over it.
Does that come with a W-9 too?
Yes,
Okay.
W-9, ACH form, usually if your company offers that. And then they'll send all of that back. They'll make sure all the information matches and input it into the system. And from there, the owner's good to go. Now, sometimes you send those out and somebody receives it and says, oh, this is for my husband. He passed away. What do I need to do? And then that sparks new changes and stuff. So
Yeah.
there's always a mass influx of owner inquiries when you send a division order out. So that's just something you always got to prepare for.
Just send it out with a hope and a prayer. Right? But I guess you tend to see, obviously, makes sense that the more cleanup work you do leading up to that, the smoother that division order mail out and return process tends to be, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. So
Definitely.
let's talk about like the suspense, right? DO suspense would be classified as, hey, I've sent division orders out. I'm not paying anyone to allow us until I can start to get some of those back. And then once
Yes.
they're received back, then you can take them out of suspense. Is that kind of
Yes.
standard procedure outside of, any state nuance? Like you mentioned, in Louisiana, North Dakota have statutory,
Yes.
laws regarding you can't suspend people, I guess, technically.
Yes. Yeah. So DO suspense would be for unsigned division order.
Okay.
There's suspense for bad address. The address we have on file is incorrect, and that can be, it could have come over from a previous operator. It could be we sent you your 1099 and it got kicked back, your check and it got kicked back, anything like that. And that's a simple fix. That's just getting the owner to reach out. Hey, I haven't gotten my check in a couple months. What's going on? Oh, well, we show your address is XYZ. Oh, well, I actually moved last year, so here's my new one.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot with owners that are ACH direct deposit owners because they're not getting those paper checks every month.
Yeah.
They're getting their 1099 once a year, and they're like, oh gosh, I forgot to do this.
Yeah. And then they're getting a deposit, once a month or every other month or whatever.
Yeah.
And it shows
They don't
up.
question it.
So that's one of the
Yeah.
things that suspense is an interesting thing. A lot of people don't really understand. And it all boils down to when you talk about those suspense items for an address or whatever, it's the responsibility of the lessor or the royalty owner to notify the operator of a change of ownership, change of address, all those
Right.
things. It's an important distinction to understand, like what's the
Yes.
owner's responsibility versus what's the company's responsibility. And,
Yes.
and are there any other little caveats there to that, or is that pretty much the golden rule?
That's pretty much it. I mean, if an owner's deceased, they go into suspense as well. And, we don't know that somebody passed away unless somebody tells us, right? So it's sometimes the family will get upset. Well, you've issued all these checks to my dad and he passed away 2 years ago. Well, we've already gone through probate. Well, nobody reached out,
Yeah.
So then you've got to go through all of that. And then same thing for a sale. Sometimes people will reach out. Well, I sold this company 2 years ago, or I bought this company 2 years ago, and you've been paying the wrong person this whole time. Da, 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 da. Well, nobody ever gave us notice. How are we supposed to know?
Yeah.
And then at that point, that's a company decision from there. If that's going to be a civil matter, if you're going to try to recoup those funds, but it really is on the owner to keep up with their records and keep us in the loop.
Yeah. And I guess to a certain extent, you can't be held liable for not being informed, so
Right.
it seems like if you're paying the wrong person because they've conveyed that interest and you weren't notified, well, then that's between party B and party C, not party A.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And owners don't like to hear that. I promise you that. I have been in some situations where they have been cussing me out, and it's like, that's a civil matter. I hope you guys are in, good graces and you can ask for that money back. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I guess so that kind of leads into a big part of the job, right? It's dealing with owners. You send the division orders and you get them back, but it doesn't end there. It's that maintenance, right?
Right.
And so you're dealing with people that are, maybe properly informing you of what's going on, or you've got some issue you need to resolve. So you're working curative. Like that's got to be a pretty big part of that personality when you're
Yes.
trying to identify someone for that team. They've got to be comfortable talking to people and maybe talking in uncomfortable situations, right?
Yes. And I think whenever you're interviewing somebody for this job, it's important that they have the skills, right? But it's more important that they have the personality and that they're empathetic. Are you going to be able to come in and not only talk to people within the company and other departments, but are you going to be able to talk to that owner and be able to resonate with them? And are they going to understand you, or are you going to get frustrated and shut down? And are we going to have a lawsuit on our hands, or, things like that? So that's a big, handling owners is a huge part of what we do. It's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when all those changes are coming in and you're all the back and forth, all that's being reconciled in the system as well. So you're doing the setup in the system, but then you're adjusting ownerships, doing ownership splits. Is there any kind of anything beyond that in the system that happens, or is it generally you're living within adjusting those ownerships and adjusting the decks?
Generally, yeah. I mean, you're processing those changes and taking those inquiries. You're adjusting the decks as needed. Trying to think what else.
Are there is this so those are pay decks, obviously, right? But
Right.
joint interest billing decks, so JIB decks, does that live within a divisional department typically as well?
Yes, typically jib decks do live within us, and we maintain those. You work closely with the jib department to make
Okay.
sure that everything's updated correctly, that people are getting their invoices paid. If they're not, put them in netting.
Okay. So what's
And then
netting?
netting is whenever you're taking what you would owe, what a jib owner would owe on an invoice, and you're taking that from their royalty check.
Okay.
So it essentially
Yep.
zeros out, nets
Good.
out.
So say if you're not going to pay me up front, I'm going to take it out of your check.
I'm going to go ahead and just take it out of your check. And then you'll get the owners to call you all of a sudden. Well, why are you taking this out of my check? They don't know.
Pay your bills,
We're
fool.
paying your bills. Yeah. Very simple.
Okay. So, all right. That makes sense. So now we've kind of gone through the division order process. What we've kind of started to touch the good transition. You talked about how you're working with a JIB department. What other departments do you work in? Does a
Oh
division order
gosh.
department, connect with? Like, how does this fit together with the whole of the MP company?
We connect with almost every single department. So we've got, of course, the JIB group. We've also got the accounting group because you've got to work with them to make sure checks are going out to the right people, that people are getting paid, things like that. We're also obviously working very closely with the lease group, which tends to fall under the land umbrella as well. You're working with in-house legal team. You've always got owner issues coming up where it's like, hey, they're threatening to sue us, or they've got this question or things like that. So you're working with the legal team. You're working with business development for acquisitions and divestitures. I mean, we touch almost every single group, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So that'll make sense. The BD and the acquisition side of things has to present a pretty big challenge, right? It's like,
Yes.
hey, we had 100 wells. Now we own 600 wells or 1,000 wells or 2,000 wells. What's that? How involved would you guys be with the onboarding of those assets? I mean, or if you're say you have that situation and you acquire an asset and now you've got 500 new leases, are you guys working in the legacy system that the asset was housed in up until like conversion happens, or do you not get involved? Is there typically some sort of transition services agreement that leaves that in the previous party until it gets converted over into your system?
Yeah, there's typically within that TSA period, we'll have them send over their decks. At point of sale, we'll have them send over their records at that point, and then we'll start integrating into our system through the end of the TSA. And then at the end of the TSA, we'll have them send over their, final records, if you will, or any outstanding items that they have. And we'll have the software company come in and upload those to our software. But with the influx of wells comes an influx of owners. So you've got to make sure you have the staff ready to take that on. And, hopefully they had records that are digital already, and you're not dealing with all these boxes stacked to the ceiling coming into your office having to scan because, oof.
We've talked about that. There's generally as a business, we've gotten past the boxes, but there's still some of those lingering boxes. Like it's still
Oh,
there.
God. Yes. Yeah. It's like we need to get with the times, people.
Do
Get these
something,
scanned
right?
in. Yeah.
No kidding. All right. Well, that makes sense. So, okay. So we talked through the life cycle, maybe just to bring this, full circle. A lease is bought, comes into the company at the company side. It's entered into the system. The well is drilled. You've got maybe a division order title opinion or something like that on a unit basis that rolls in. You guys set up the deck, send out division orders, people get paid, and now you're in pay. How does that, is it typically are you mailing checks to people? Are you ACHing? What kind of brings it full circle as far as getting people paid?
So typically your company will have one check write period a month. And then that's whenever we're going to be sending out the ACHs or the mail payments. You've got JIB invoices at some point during the month as well, usually towards the beginning of the month.
So all that typically works on a monthly cycle, right?
Yes,
Payments,
typically, yeah.
collections, all is in a monthly cycle.
Typically, yes. Yeah. And then usually once a year, the company will have what we call minimum suspense release. And so it's for those owners that maybe only earn $10 for the year or whatever. It's to clear out those accounts.
Yeah, so you can
that you're not stuck.
balance the
Yeah.
books, close out the books, and be done with it.
Yeah.
Right. So, so the suspense thing. How do you know? I mean, I guess when you're, is it the division order department's responsibility when you're going into a new state to really understand what the DO requirements are? Are you working with internal counsel on that as far as what you can suspend and what you can't? Is it pretty well established as far as rules? Is that something that, like from an educational standpoint, that the division order analyst is responsible for, knowing and understanding? Like how do you handle navigating the different state requirements and things like that?
It's up to the division order analyst, to the department to know what you're doing, understand the different reasons for suspense and how to cure that. it's a huge part of what we do to stay, continue going to trainings and stay up to date with all the laws for the states that you're operating in. If you can't do your job properly.
Yeah.
So that falls within them. But, there's kind of the universal codes, if you will, no matter what state almost whatever state you're in, you've got to have a TIN on file, right? The IRS wants their money. They want to be able to tie you. And if you don't have a TIN for an owner and you're paying them, the IRS is going to come after your company and you're going to pay fees and you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So
it's not just getting people paid, it's making sure you've got everything papered up and documented properly. Do y'all do that? Does the division order department do that annual reporting typically, or?
Yes, typically, everywhere that I've been, we've kind of outsourced that to different groups that have handled like Escheat and stuff for us.
Yeah.
So they are the ones that mostly keep up with like, okay, this state, the dormancy period is this long and all of that. But we absolutely have to run the suspense reports to determine, okay, this owner who lives in this state has this much in suspense and we haven't had any kind of owner contact with them or they haven't cashed their checks in X number of time, they qualify for Escheat. So that does fall on the division order department, absolutely.
Okay. That was a good transition because I was going to ask you about Escheat. So explain Escheat. Like, what is that?
So Escheat is unclaimed property. So it is money that has been sitting there in suspense that has not been paid for whatever the amount of time is for the last known address of the owner. It's not based on the location of the well. It's based on the location of the owner. Okay. So you escheat to the state that you last know that they lived in. And then whatever that state's dormancy period is, all the funds that fall within that time period get escheated to that state. Now, there is a period beforehand called the due diligence period where you're sending letters to those owners. You're looking for an updated address on, Google or LexisNexis.
Diligent, reasonable effort.
Mm-hmm. You have to show proof that you tried to reach them and get them to make contact and update their information. If you don't within that time period, that money gets escheated to the state, and then it's up to the owner to work with the state to get their money back. I've had people that have reached out to us 2 days after we sent that money to the state, and it's like, I'm so sorry, but yeah, you're gonna have to work with them.
Yeah,
I'll help you get whatever documents you need.
Does the state charge a fee for managing that, or I wonder how that honestly works for the land? It's not your problem, right?
No, I don't know. I know my problem.
Not my money. So okay, that makes sense. Yeah, we have that from a bonus consideration standpoint. From time to time, somebody just won't cash their check, and we have to escheat, but obviously not at the level that you have from a royalty owner standpoint. Yes. Which I would imagine that's where the big bulk of that comes from. It's maybe someone that doesn't have a mineral interest, but they're just a royalty interest owner. They may have got it from their great grandfather or something. They don't even know they have it.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of what it is. Or some kind of heir that, didn't even know that they were listed on the affidavit of heirship or in the will or something like that. Yeah. Or a lot of times I've seen it where it's even like charitable organizations. Somebody left all of their, their interests, different charitable organizations, and they had no clue. Especially like colleges, they have a lot of different addresses for a lot of different buildings. So they may not have gotten that DO to the correct building, and they didn't even know they got this interest.
It's just sitting there. What would you say, and this is a pop quiz trick question.
Oh gosh.
And this certainly it applies to maybe just the assets that you work, but what percentage of royalty ownership in a DSU is actually in suspense? And what do you see outside of Louisiana, North Dakota, where you have a more, statutory requirement to really dig into it? Is it 20%? Is it 10? Is it half? Like, say a year passed, when your division orders were sent out, where you have this time for people to clean stuff up. Where does that land? Mm-hmm.
I would say somewhere between like 10 to 20% of owners are going to be in suspense for some various reason.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Because to a certain extent, you probably have to have some sort of directive from a leadership side of things within the company to say, hey, we're going to really push to identify and find people and do our curative and get them in pay. But I imagine there's probably other leadership, opinions that are like, hey, not our problem. We're going to stay lean
Yeah.
and mean, and they can get you and they can get right, or they're going to be in suspense. Is that tend to?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, it definitely depends on your leadership, and then it depends on your company resources, right? What can you afford? Can you afford the big LexisNexis, Westlaw, or are you sticking to Google because it's free?
Yeah.
It really just depends. And then how much manpower do you have? Do you have the manpower to do research like that, or can you not spare the hours?
Yeah.
So it definitely depends.
Yeah, that's the next good question. So, like, what resources are in the toolkit of division order analyst to help find people? You mentioned LexisNexis and things like that. What are the, like, if you need to have 3 tools, what would they be?
Oh gosh,
Or
I
maybe
would
just
say
one.
Lexis.
I mean, like, what are
Maybe
the
just one.
typical,
Oh.
yeah, the typical tools that you use to help find people and do part of that part of the job?
The best one I've ever used is definitely LexisNexis.
Yeah.
I think it's been the most helpful. I've used some like Westlaw. We even used Ancestry
Mm-hmm.
to find people. And LexisNexis has been the best one.
Yeah. And LexisNexis has tiers, right? As far as
Yes.
what you're licensed and allowed to do. Can you expand on
Yes.
that? Like, there's,
I don't know too much about the back end of it and the specifics, but I do know, yes, there are different tiers. And then, you can get licenses for various number of people. It's all about what your company wants to pay out and how much you need. Some companies can only afford to have one license. So you have one designated person that's doing the due diligence.
Yeah.
Some of them, they can have multiple and you're able to have several people work on it. So
if you're cheap like Dudley Land, we pay for one license and we have
one
a person.
license, one Escheat specialist.
Yeah, we have to. What we have to do is we use Basecamp as our kind of one of our workflow tools, and all of our lease buyers are in that Basecamp, and we have one person who's the LexisNexis keeper, and they're just sending in requests. Hey, I need an address or a phone number. Help me try to find this. And that comes in, and they cycle that out, and it kind of works through that workflow because there's a cost associated with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I learned that I did not know until we hired a landman who was also a private investigator. Like, there's a whole nother level of LexisNexis and different tools that are for like private investigator type people that get you a bunch of good stuff. It's kind of creepy because I know they were stalking on me. Like, I'm like, what do they know about me? But they've got a lot, man. It's impressive how much information is out there that you can get about people. If you've got,
It's kind of scary.
yeah, if you can get the appropriate licenses and willing to pay and keep up with your CEs and all that, I guess, for that side of the business.
Whenever I did the training with the LexisNexis representative, she told us, she said, go ahead and put yourself in there and you'll learn to work it. And I was like, there's marriage records. If you have a boating license, they've got it in there. It's crazy the stuff that they have.
Yeah, but it's important. I mean, and I guess you do have an ethical responsibility as a division order analyst to, use those resources, I guess,
Right.
for your professional use, and don't dig too far, right?
Right.
Does the NADOA, do they have like a standards of practice and ethical guidelines? Is there anything to that effect in that are part of the association? It's a big deal for landmen, right? Because we're negotiating
Yes.
agreements. Is there a component to that for a division order analyst, or is it not as big of a emphasis?
Oh, no, it's big. We absolutely have a code of ethics, and we have ethics committees that will follow up on anonymous tips that come in for various reasons. So yes, you are expected to follow a code, and just be a good human being, right? And do the right thing.
So we always say that. Khalil hears me say it all the time. Poor thing. Step one, don't be an asshole.
Yep. Yeah.
That'll keep you out of business. That'll keep you out of trouble. Pretty good. So you mentioned earlier that there's certain things that are outsourced, right? Escheat being one of them. It's kind of specialized thing. What other ways do you, is there outsourced support, or, you have the company level employees working within the department. But what ways do you see companies flex up and flex down from a manpower standpoint, or where would they outsource certain things? Or what things are like typically like central to be a company level obligation versus something maybe they're willing to outsource? What do you see in that?
So I've been on both sides of that. I've worked for an operator that outsourced certain tasks, and then I have been in outsourcing. And when I was on outsourcing, we had everything from, they really just needed help with mailings or owner relations to full force. They had no division order people. They're running extremely lean. They expected us to do everything. That they relied on us. And then I worked for an operator where we outsourced our owner relations to Bangalore, India. And I helped to manage them, and took those calls with them. And now if things got crazy or
It got
somebody
elevated
yeah, then it would come into the team in the office, and we would handle those. But once we built that trust with them and we saw that they were capable, we were happy to give them more responsibility. Hey, get these documents put in, or do these simple pay code changes, things like that. So I've seen everything. It just depends on what your company needs and the resources that they have or don't have.
Yeah. Are you a big established company, or are you a private equity backed lean and mean startup, right? I guess that dictates it. Some of the things that we see, we do a lot of backlog of change orders, right? And, interest coding and things like that, owner coding. Owner relations is a pretty common outsource thing I see. From your perspective, right? You've been doing this for, a dozen years now. What is the things that you feel like they must be done in-house? They're best handled in-house versus, what's that blend?
I think, oh goodness, I
If
think
you're
well set up.
perfect in your perfect, company environment, your perfect division or department, what's does that look like?
I think well setups are the most difficult to outsource because you've got to still have that competence when you're outsourcing it. And, because there's a lot that goes into that review and that setup, and that's something that you do not want to mess up because it will mess up everything else, right? I think things like owner relations, pay code changes, stuff like that, those are safe, but well setups, deck setups, and even transfers. Some of those transfers can get pretty crazy, especially if you've got a family fighting against itself and there's legal issues involved. You don't want somebody outside your company trying to figure that out or touch that.
Yeah, it can make a decision that could affect the company in a negative light, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Wrap you up in the court case. You don't want that.
Yeah. So that's a good transition. I wanted to talk about disconnects, right? One of the things that you see in the business is no land team, and it's just because it's a complicated thing, right? But it's rare that you see a company that really has like a solid database and a solid system and a solid process, right? And they're really happy with their records, and they're really happy how things are going. The ones that you do see that have a really clean system and a clean process, communication is like spot on, right?
Yes.
The division order department's down the hall. They're not across the street or down in some other city. What are the common like communication breakdowns that you see that lead to this disconnect where, you've got a 6-month backlog, or you can't get decks set up cleanly, or every time you set one up, there's problems? And what leads to the problems that you'll see, within a division order department, or with the deck setup, or JIT billing, or whatever?
Oh goodness. I think it's a lack of expectations and a lack of workflow processes. That's what I've seen firsthand. If you've got new people coming on, maybe you just did an acquisition and you're desperate for help, and you brought all these people in, but you don't have the time to train them correctly, or you don't have procedures clearly laid out ahead of time. Those people are coming in blind and they're just trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
They're pouring buckets on fire wherever they can. And then that will definitely lead to breakdowns because nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing or when they're supposed to be doing it. And you've got people working on tasks on top of each other, and when they could be doing something else. So I think that's the biggest thing. You've got to have your expectations laid out and your procedures laid out. Hold your weekly meetings or your monthly meetings with your land team and go over expectations, your wins, your losses, what can we do better? Speak with your team. I think that's a big thing also, just to maintain. If you are steady, maintain it.
Yeah.
Talk to your team.
So regular meetings amongst your team, right, and your DO group, then departmental meetings, and good communication with land and accounting and other disciplines that kind of revolve around that hub, right?
Yes.
That you guys
Yes.
are. How So like establishing those protocols and procedures, is that something that is done within the department, or I guess is it like someone like you? Would that be your responsibility as a leader of the department? How does that come to be?
Typically, yes, it's the leadership that's going to do that, right? You're going to kind of do a plan, right, for the team of what everybody's position is, who is in charge of what, and who, and what tasks is this group going to take on. I've seen it where sometimes they're broken out by asset area, right? Sometimes you've just got the whole team working on everything, so you're only operating on one asset. And that typically falls on leadership to say, these are our expectations, and if this, then this, if this, then this, and if and who's going to take on the fires, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to take on the elevated?
Who's plugging
calls and
away
all
at work
that.
every day? Who's handling
Right.
problems? Right.
Mhm. And if you're out, who's going to cover you? That's a big thing.
Yeah, because I would
Making
imagine
sure you're
those
covered.
departments generally they're not bloated with staff, right? You're usually running very
Right.
lean, right? And if you've got a 3-person department, somebody's out for a month, or somebody goes out on maternity or goes on a vacation or gets sick or gets bronchitis, and they miss 3 days, it can cause a domino effect, I'm sure, where it's like you
Right.
never can get caught up, or maybe you've got someone stepping in that isn't as familiar with the protocols that can get you going down a path and cause some problems that you don't realize until you're months down the line, right?
Yeah, exactly. My second child, when I went out for maternity leave, we had one of our admins jump in and help with my tasks. And so she got to learn division order and all of that. And she actually ended up transitioning to the division order department after that. So that was really cool to see. But yeah, it's making sure you have the help no matter where you can get it, having those people to jump in that are competent and
Yeah.
able to help.
So you mentioned, obviously starting with, with good data first. What would you define as a good handoff from, say, your in-house landman who's, been working with the brokers, they've gotten title done, they've bought leases, they've gotten abstracts and run sheets and title opinions rendered, right? And maybe they've done a certain amount of curative. Like, what does a picture perfect handoff look like from the land team, your in-house land team, to your division order group, so that they can take it and run with it from there? Like, what's best case scenario for a clean transition?
I would say their decks, or DOI, spreadsheet, whatever you want to call it, ready to go clean. They've already determined suspense codes, or they at least have a good idea of what your suspense codes are going to be. The interest has been laid out. Everything adds up to one. There's no issues, right? It's clear, it's clean, it's ready to go. That helps get these things entered into the system and set up quickly.
Is it still pretty standard that comes to you in the form of a spreadsheet?
That's still the standard,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the biggest challenge, right? It's like, how can we get away from a stinking spreadsheet? But then,
I know.
gosh dang, David's spreadsheet that was designed in 2013, it works.
Yeah, that template is survived for a decade now. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see? Like, how do you see that transitioning? Do you think we'll ever get to the point where there'll be a mechanism or a product or a process that can get that stuff standardized and databased earlier on in the process, so that you're not having, like, it's not the responsibility of a landman in-house or a division order, analyst to build this division of interest spreadsheet, which can get very complicated. People don't realize
Yes.
how complicated those things are. Like,
Multi-tab.
yeah.
I think anything's possible, especially now that we've got AI, right? I think that there is definitely going to be some kind of something, and maybe it can take that title opinion and create a spreadsheet, and you're only having to go, again, spreadsheet, but you're only having to go in and review it. But a big part of what division order analysts do revolves around spreadsheets. It's disgusting the amount of spreadsheets I have open up on a daily basis. I've got 3 monitors and I've got a spreadsheet on almost every single one of them. But, that's just kind of the tried and true thing that's worked and been the clearest. But I'm sure there will be some kind of progression.
Yeah.
Where we
It's
can
just
clean
got to
that
be a
up.
challenge, right? Because it takes a family, right, to get one of these things, to get a person put in pay. I don't think people really appreciate everything that happens. From, if you're a royalty owner, like the day I get my check, They have no idea what really happened.
Oh
You know,
yeah, the tears, the blood, sweat, and tears that went in to get you
yeah,
that.
the screaming,
Mhm.
the connections, and it just comes from a lot of different sources. You got different vendors, different outsource, folks providing a product, and they're getting to the same answer, but it may look differently.
Right.
And I guess the spreadsheet is really just a database. You're looking at the ugly part of a database. You don't have some sexy interface, right?
Right.
How do
Right.
you guys keep, like, at what point, I guess it lives in a spreadsheet until you get it into the system, whatever your system of choice is at the in-house level. And then does that deck, are you updating that spreadsheet forever? Or at some point, does it transition into you're updating a database?
It pretty much from that point transitions to you're making the updates in the system, right? Best practice is to save that initial spreadsheet, deck, whatever, to your server, just so you have
Along with any, like,
something happen,
yeah,
right?
curative and things
And
like that
yeah,
you,
right, yeah, because any system can have an issue, but a good one will be able to show you transaction history, right? So you should be able to see, okay, on this day we did this for this reason, so on. Um, so yeah, but after a certain point, it's definitely you're maintaining it in that system.
yeah. So what's the most common thing that I guess people assume that a division order team does that they actually don't?
Oh gosh, there's two. The most common one is that we are accounting or accounting is us.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not the
People just say,
situation.
"Oh, that's back office, right? It's division
Yeah.
order and accounting and all that. And they all do the same things." And
Mhm.
Rebecca should know all that, right?
Yeah, there's definitely things that we do that accountants don't know. I've had accountants come to me and, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Or like, oh, I can't just put this person in pay. No, you cannot. We're missing their TIN.
Yeah.
But then they do things that I certainly don't know. And I don't want to know, honestly.
Not my problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess there's probably separation by design, right? But there's
Right.
enough nuance and enough skill and know-how that you need to have in each side of things that you need that separation. Is that
Right.
kind of the general gist of it?
Yes. Yes. And even lease. Some people think like that we fall under the lease group. And in some cases you do just in the company hierarchy, but we don't do leases like that. We're not skilled in that area and we're
So
skilled in our
leases, like,
area.
you
So
mean provisioning, setting up leases in the system, obligation
yes.
calendars, things like that. That's
Right.
what you're referring to? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Bonus payouts, rentals, all that
Yeah.
stuff. That doesn't really generally fall under us.
Okay. So
So
generally, division orders, getting people into pay, handling owner relations, keeping people in pay, managing that payment process. Accounting is doing accounting stuff. I don't think anybody really knows what accounting does. And then you've got, I guess the third tier would be the lease analyst, lease department, where they're provisioning leases, maintaining obligation calendars and things like that. Is that kind of the
yes.
three? And then the fourth tier is land. Like your
Yeah, I think
in-house land
so.
team, is that pretty general assumption
Yeah.
of how the division of responsibility is broken up?
I would say so. Under land umbrella, kind of you've generally got a lease group and a division order group. So
That makes sense. And is it, I just got all kinds of questions. I'm just going here. So
hit me with them.
is it pretty common that a division order analyst will, or a team of analysts within a division or group, are they segregated or siloed to a particular asset so they can kind of become accustomed to that asset, or are they working all assets of a company? What do you tend to see there? I guess it depends is the answer, right?
It depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the typical answer, right? But I think if you have multiple assets, especially if they're in different states, it's necessary to have
Best
different teams,
best
right?
to break those down so they can really understand the
Absolutely.
state requirements.
Yeah, you've got a Bakken team, a Permian team, a Haynesville team, whatever. That helps it work the best because then you've got not only people to back you up, but the right hand knows what the left hand's doing. Um, so
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, this is the money question that you get to make your life easier forever. There's one thing that you would tell an in-house landman that to always make sure they do to make your life just so easy, or so much easier. What would that be?
oh, man, make it add up to 1.0, I guess.
1.0.
I don't know.
I'm easy to please here.
Yes.
Don't send me
yes.
1.127 and tell me it's good.
No, give me your spreadsheet at 1.0 because I have been in the situation where it's come to me and it's under 1 or it's over 1 and I'm like, why did you even send this to
Yeah.
me?
So I
I
guess
can't
that
even do this.
if a layman's having problems, right, or they've got a challenge, when that handoff, we talked about the handoff earlier, right? It's
Mhm.
is you would expect there, or I guess a healthy relationship is here's the deck. Let's sit down and talk about this is what I've learned. There's got to be an offloading of a debrief of, hey, this is where I'm at. Got some issues here. I'm a little fuzzy on this. Is that kind of the best case is if you have that ability to work within the land team on dialing that in when
Yes.
it comes to you?
Yes, that's the best case, and it's important to have good relationships across all the departments, and that's why,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because questions are going to come up. You're going to need favors. I mean, I've had landmen come to me and say, "Hey, John Doe just called me and he doesn't know where his check is. Can you call him right now and tell him where his check is?" And I'm like, "That's a very, he can go into Energy Link and there's his check detail. He got one,
And
whatever."
they're like, he's in a tractor. He's not going to Energy Link.
Yeah, he doesn't even know how to work a computer. And it's like, okay. So yeah, you've got to have that relationship to be able to do, help each other out and do each other
Do you
favors.
tend to kind of, there's a lot of team building, right? And
Yes.
happy hours and socials and industry participation at events. Um, do you try to do things together under that land umbrella so that you can build those relationships internally?
Yes, I think it's important. It's very important, to have those two groups come together. Not only just like, oh, division order happy hour, division order team building
Yeah, it's
activity, everybody getting together and commingling and maintaining those relationships, definitely.
yeah.
And having that mutual respect for each other
Yeah.
and understanding.
Well, I think that's any successful, I guess, team has to have communication and understanding. We talk a lot about, the flywheel and, how things happen. We talked about so much happens to get someone to pay. Well, it's a process. And if the right hand knows what the left hand is doing and you can communicate, you can roll. And if you're documented, your processes are documented and you have an established protocol for how you can operate, you can build and grow your team. But if you're not communicating and the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing, I mean, that just leads to problems, I could imagine.
Yeah. It's going to lead to resentment. Things are going to fall apart. And it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. So, okay, let's transition a little bit. I want to talk about, how people get into the business. Is there a shortage of division order, skilled division order people? What is what's the association's involvement in education, recruitment, training, opportunity, job boards, things like that? Let's talk about that. Where do we stand
okay.
on that front? We talked about kind of how you get into it, and it's just find your way into it. But
Right.
if you're anything like if divisional analysts or anything like field landmen in the field landman profession, we've got a pretty big age gap, and
Yes.
there's we're eyeballing a shortage, like we're staring down the barrel of a shortage manpower. Is that the case
Mhm.
in the division order? Within that profession, within that skill set.
It is. And that's something that I noticed pretty quickly when I got into this industry is the closest person to my age was 15, 20 years older than me, for a long time, because I started in this when I was 20. And for a long time, there was nobody near my age. So there's definitely a gap. And I think, just kind of the thought around oil and gas, and how people perceive it, contributes to that big time. Um, people may think it's bad or they may think it's a dying
Yeah.
industry, things
Whatever
like
the
that. And so
narrative
nobody
is
wants,
that they're being
yeah,
fed.
nobody wants to go into that job thinking like, oh, well, I'm probably going to get laid off in 5 years anyway, so I'm not even going to bother with that. So there's definitely, yes, an age gap in those, those men and women who, we call them the OGs, right?
Mhm.
The ones that have been doing it a while, they're starting to retire and there's not enough people to replace them with the skill set that's needed to replace them, right? And not only are they, they're leaving the industry, but they're taking that knowledge with them. So I think it's important to get involved with local organizations also and, get that knowledge from them, sit down and talk with them and um, see what kind of situations they've been in and what they recommend and things like that. Get a mentor,
Mhm.
especially.
Mhm. Do the associations help with that? Or I mean, are there mentoring programs? Are there opportunities for people to get in? Like, what's their path if someone is interested in it, or they know someone, or maybe even a field landman, right? That's got a strong title background that's looking for maybe a more permanent opportunity or a company level job. How can someone make that transition?
I would say get involved with the local organizations and the national organizations. There's several. Most of them will have a professional membership, which means you are a DOA, you work directly in some form of division order analyst work. And then there's associates. So maybe you touch division order or you're around it in some form or fashion, right? But showing up to those networking events, showing up to those trainings and meeting people is a big thing.
Yeah.
Um, I've seen some that have mentor programs. I wish that was more prevalent because, like I said, those people with all the knowledge, they're retiring, and so I do think it's important to get a mentor. But honestly, my last 2 job opportunities have come from my involvement in the local organizations. It's come from people that I've met or that I've served with on these boards.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to get in, even if you're a college kid or you're looking to make a transition. Show up to these events, shake hands, bring your resume, bring your business card. Even if you've got to go make your own out there on the internet somewhere,
Yeah.
right? Bring your business card, get your face out there and say hi to people, and it will make an impact.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, if I had a stable of division order analysts, I could put everyone up to work tomorrow. There's definitely a demand for it. And I think we'll start to see more and more people. I mean, I know we're starting to see it. If you really search for it, there's out there, you can recruit people, right? The sentiment of the oil and gas industry ebbs and flows, right? But
Right.
I think if I've directed people to land administration and division order teams because their acumen fits it, right? They want to do that. And I haven't had any one of them that I've talked to a mentor or someone senior connected them with that didn't say, hey, you can do this to the day you retire. I mean, there's that kind of opportunity and there's that gap, really.
Definitely.
And so it's a meaningful profession. It's an important profession. It's an important part of the business. And the work that you do with the association is super important. You nailed it, right? The opportunities aren't just going to show up on your doorstep. You got to go get them. And
You gotta get out of your comfort zone.
and just like a landman, I mean, the associations and the involvement, the things that you guys do are equally as important to that profession. So I applaud you for that.
Yes. Thank you.
If someone wants to get involved in one of the associations, obviously you've talked about NADOA. What other cities have division order associations? Like, what are some of the bigger ones? Is it primarily Houston, or is it?
Houston is the biggest. We are the biggest chapter. But we are also, the energy capital or whatever.
Should be.
So of course we're going to be the biggest.
Yeah.
But no, there are other local chapters. Like I think that there is an Austin chapter. There's a Permian Basin chapter. Oh gosh.
I guess maybe
they're all
I think
over the place.
Dallas. Does Dallas have one?
Yeah, there's Dalworth. I think Fort Worth even has their own too, or maybe there's several just within Texas.
Yeah, and I think Oklahoma City might. I think they've got one too, and Tulsa might have, but I don't know if it's still going or not. They've kind of consolidated some of that, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately there are some that are having to shut down or join other groups. It's
the
just
nature
kind
of
of
consolidation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to get people to volunteer right now. It's hard to get people involved, and so it is happening. But it's it's important to show up.
Yeah.
So
Show up, get involved. Well, awesome.
Yes.
Well, man, we've just explored all things division order department.
Yeah, we did.
We did. We touched on it. And you did a great job. And thank you for kind of unpacking some of this. I think there's just a lot of basic, there's just people don't, a lot of people, if you're not in it on the company level, you don't understand what happens. So this is a good breakdown of, how does somebody get into pay? So, Rebekah, thank you for your time. If people want to reach out to you in your capacity as, with the associations, can they find you on the website? Can they find you on LinkedIn? If anybody's interested in joining, how do they go about that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Rebekah Stringer. If you go to the HEDOA website, hedoa.org, there's more information on there. So we welcome everybody. So reach out.
Awesome. And I guess now I owe you a speaking engagement.
Yes, you do. You absolutely do. We're always looking for speakers and sponsors.
I know.
so
I'll return the
got you on the
favor.
hook.
I don't know what people are going to want to hear me talk about, but I can. I'm a landman. I can still go, razzle dazzle and BS my way
You'll do
through
great.
it. So, Rebekah, thank you for joining us, and thank you for
Thank
really
you.
diving into this, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yes, I hope so.
Awesome.
Enjoyed today's topic? Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Learn more at dudley-land.com. See you next episode.